Hello and welcome. Today, let's talk about Star Trek. Sheesh, you take a few months to go for a movie that everyone was apparently done talking about already, and suddenly everyone is just ready to move on or something. Star Trek is one of my favorite sci-fi series, and getting to watch through them on Netflix and on Bird of Prey 5's weekly DS9 episode review, it's reminded me how much I liked each of these 5 series that we've seen prior to Picard for such different reasons.
Dad, you forgot about Star Trek Discovery.
I'm aware of what I've said. Of all the series, Voyager holds a special place in my heart. It first premiered the year I turned 11 and was everything 11-year-old Matthew could want. It was action and adventure. It was a story about a hopelessly outclassed ship fighting, separated from any kind of support base, and it was all framed against the backdrop of science fiction, a genre I found myself increasingly identifying with. In the first episode of Star Trek, Voyager, Captain Janeway takes command of one of Starfleet's latest class of ships, the Intrepid class. Aesthetically, the Intrepid class was a departure from the ships we'd seen previously in Star Trek. Gone were the large saucer sections attached to the main body of the ship through some kind of neck piece with the twin nacelles jutting back above the main body of the ship like a pair of TV antennae. In its place, we got to see a streamlined ship, a ship that looked like it was built for speed. But Voyager was unique from previous iterations of ships we'd focused on in another important way. The Intrepid-class ship was not designed to be a warship. Mr. Scott, one to beam up, if you please.
Energizing.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. The Enterprise shown here in the original series is considered to be a Class 1 heavy cruiser. Weighing 1 million gross tons, it has 22 decks spanning a length of nearly 300 meters, a height of approximately 70 meters, and a beam of almost 130 meters. It boasted an impressive, for the time, 4 total torpedo launchers and at least 4 phaser banks, though discrepancies between episodes make the exact number of banks a difficult number to calculate. During the TNG era, the Federation took the Constellation class and supersized it. The Galaxy-class starship now came in at a massive 5 million gross tons. It has 42 decks spanning a length of nearly 650 meters, a height of approximately 130 meters, and a beam of almost 475 meters. You could fit almost 14 of the original Enterprises into the same space the Enterprise D occupies. Additionally, the Enterprise D expanded the weapon capabilities of the original to include 12 Type 10 phaser banks, and improved the torpedo launchers such that even though they only had 2 launchers, one facing fore and the other aft, they could still launch 2.5 times the number of torpedoes in a single volley as the original Enterprise. And yet curiously, despite this heavy armament, and the fact that the Enterprise D was the first to be sent into an active engagement when time permitted, the Enterprise D was designated an Explorer-class ship, and not as some kind of heavy cruiser or battleship. Indeed, as Picard was so fond of saying, the Federation was not the military. So, is it fair to say that Voyager was the first ship that a series focused on to not be a warship? Computer, initiate site-to-site transport, Matthew Epsilon 3. Prior to the NCC 1701D, 3 out of the 4 ships to bear the name Enterprise were classified as a heavy cruiser of some sort. The one exception to this was the NCC 1701B. Launched in the year 2293, it was an Excelsior-class ship that was considered to be an Explorer-class ship. However, both it and the NCC 1701D were both clearly warships based off their weight and technical specifications. In both their cases, the naming of the class had less to do with their actual use and, in my opinion, more to do with their desired perceptions. You see, the other event of note in the year that the NCC 1701B was commissioned was the disaster of Praxis, the natural moon of the Klingon homeworld. This disaster laid the foundations to the events that led up to the signing of the Khmer Accords. I believe that Starfleet knew they needed the power and stability that the Excelsior-class ships would bring, but wanted to give the appearance of de-escalation in light of possible peace with the Klingon Empire. As a result, the Excelsior class was given the more peaceful-sounding Explorer class. Besides, the Excelsior class ships were already in production by the year 2293. It wouldn't make sense to scrap the ships that were close to being finished, just to start from scratch with a lighter class of ships. This attitude, however, was short-lived, and within 50 years the designation NCC 1701C was given to one of the newly commissioned Ambassador-class ships, a class of ships that was given the classification of heavy cruiser. Considering that it was during this time that the relations with Klingons were rocky, it's not surprising to me that the Federation gave this class the much more militaristic heavy cruiser classification. By the time of the Galaxy class's commissioning, I was just on the Enterprise D. What happened? Like I was saying, by the time of the Galaxy class's commissioning, the Federation's relationships with the Klingons was once again solidified, and the Federation at this point decided to distance Starfleet from being a military entity, giving the Galaxy-class starships a classification of Explorer. However, the meaninglessness of this name is highlighted in the Next Generation episode, Yesterday's Enterprise. In it, we can see what the Galaxy-class ships would have been had the Federation not solidified peaceful relations with the Klingons. In the episode, we discover that the event that secures peace between the Klingon Empire and the Federation was the rescue attempt and subsequent destruction of the NCC 1701C, while responding to a distress call from a Klingon outpost. Without the intervention of the NCC 1701C, the Romulans were successful in sowing discord between the Federation and the Klingon Empire, resulting in a state of all-out war. Yet despite this being a militaristic universe, the functions and design of the Galaxy class remained unchanged. In fact, the only differences we observe throughout the episode are changes to the way people interact with the same systems, such as a different bridge layout to maximize combat readiness, the absence of families, the changes to the uniforms, and some minor nomenclature changes such as having a military log instead of a captain's log. The only differences we can infer from the episode in terms of tactical differences is that the militaristic Enterprise D may have had superior deflector shields, though it's really hard to tell if this was a factor of war forcing innovation or if the regular Enterprise D had the exact same advancements made to it. This was only a factor of normal technological advances made since the Enterprise C was constructed. By all counts, the Galaxy-class ship was the battleship equivalent of Starfleet, and the most powerful tactical vessel ever created by the Federation. Can someone give me a little help getting back where I belong, please? Oh, I'm sure that's not going to come back to haunt me. You know, the Intrepid class ships, on the other hand, they truly did live up to their classification of far-range explorers. The Intrepid class of ships is a mere 700,000 gross tons. That's 14% the tonnage of the Galaxy-class ships. It has 15 decks spanning a length of nearly 350 meters and a beam of right about 120 meters. And while the exact height of the Intrepid class is never directly stated, we can use the dimensions of the Galaxy and Constitution class of ships and safely assume that each deck is right about 10 feet tall, or approximately 3.05 meters, giving the Intrepid class ships a height of approximately 50 meters. It wasn't just size that saw a reduction in the Intrepid class. The Intrepid class were ships truly designed for exploration, and as such had its armaments severely stripped down from battleships, such as the Galaxy class of ships. The Intrepid class only has a third of the phaser banks the Galaxy class ships were armed with, and only a handful of Class 6 and Class 9 torpedoes. They had 4 Class 10 torpedoes, and oddly in Voyager's case, 2 tri-cobalt devices. Even the warp core of the Intrepid class was scaled down from the Galaxy class ship. The Galaxy class's warp core spanned 12 decks, compared to the 8 decks were shown on the Intrepid class. However, the Intrepid's warp core was no slouch. Everything about the Intrepid class was designed for long-range missions. While not boasting the raw power that the Galaxy class could provide, it was far more efficient. In fact, it housed a reaction chamber capable of recrystallizing the lithium, giving it the ability to operate for 3 years before needing a new batch of crystals. In the Next Generation, the warp core is defined in terms of power it's capable of producing. However, in Voyager, the warp core is defined in terms of speed. This is because the 2 warp cores of the 2 ships were fundamentally designed for 2 separate functions, namely raw power versus ultimate speed. As such, we can see that the Intrepid class of ships could achieve a sustainable cruise velocity of warp factor 9.975, a speed that far outclasses the maximum warp of 9.65 we see the Enterprise achieve in the episode Q Who. You know what? I'm gonna go down to engineering. I'll see you in a minute. Sorry. You never really stop to think about how long travel between decks and sections should take. Though, if a turbolift employed something like internal dampeners, the turbolift could achieve instant acceleration and deacceleration of high speeds and not turn its occupants, such as myself, into paste on the wall. Though, that would be a huge waste of resources. To be fair, however, I could see the Galaxy-class ships wasting power like that. Power usage is another major point in the Intrepid class's favor. While the Galaxy-class ships were extremely powerful, they were also extremely wasteful with that power. It was massive and built for luxury as well as war. Personal crew quarters have never been larger on a starship than they were in the Galaxy-class, not to mention the insane level of amenities the Galaxy-class offered, such as an Ambo-Jitsu ring, a racquetball court, a phaser range, a gymnasium, a salon, a relaxing area, a replication area, educational areas, dedicated classrooms, and 16 holodecks. 16 holodecks! Are you kidding me? The Galaxy-class ship was the class of ships that practically screamed, "We're invincible." It was the time of the Pax Federation. Their ships were so mighty that they could send whole families in harm's way and come out unscathed, at least in their own mind. One of the prime ways we can see how the Intrepid class made better use of its power is also a way that it had a tactical advantage over the Galaxy class of ships. The Intrepid class of ships had vastly superior shielding. They possessed 14 external shield grids. We never get any strong number of how many shield grids the Galaxy class ships possess, but in the worst case scenario, the answer would be 2. Fore and aft. And this would make a certain amount of sense to me, as the Galaxy class in a lot of ways represents the height of the Federation's hubris. 2 massively powerful shield grids would have perfectly fit the mindset of the Galaxy class builders. It met the bare minimum to be redundant and had tons of power thrown behind them. The Intrepid class didn't only do a better job with isolation of shield grids by distributing external ship protection across 14 unique shield grids, the shields themselves were also more adaptable, capable of producing traditional shields as well as multiphasic and multi-spectrum shielding. This meant that Voyager could survive a planet blowing up at far closer ranges than the Enterprise could, or even they could survive being near a binary pulsar. Join Starfleet, they said. They'll let you fly ships, they said. Oh gosh. Now, one final noteworthy advantage the Intrepid class has over the Galaxy class ships is found here in the Jefferies tubes, with the addition of the binaural gel packs. These packs replaced many of the isolinear chips and were capable of passing far more data through and handle more unique processes at any given time when compared to the isolinear chips. Now, a common misconception is that the binaural gel packs are somehow directly capable of superior navigation themselves, and this was due to some clunky dialogue in the premiere episode of Voyager, but the truth is that both the Intrepid and Galaxy-class computers would arrive at the same navigation calculations. It's just that the gel packs allowed for the calculations to be accomplished more quickly. Now, considering that the Intrepid class was truly an exploration vessel, one of the main concerns they would undoubtedly face is making sure that the different science teams have equal access to computer resources. In fact, we see Galaxy-class vessels struggling with this in the TNG episode The Game. Traditional computers simply couldn't keep up with the pace and demands of multiple science teams competing for time. These binaural gel packs, are the answer to this dilemma. Oh man, I'm getting too old and too fat to be crawling around in these tiny Jefferies tubes. Oh, that's tight. Okay, so how does the Intrepid class compare against the Galaxy class? Well, for a real-life example, it would certainly be interesting if there was a submariner who might be willing to chime in with some thoughts on how a Kid-class destroyer might hold up against an Iowa-class battleship. They have about the same weight difference, crew complement difference, technological differences, years being produced differences, as the Galaxy and Intrepid-class ships. However, for just the Star Trek universe, in a straight-up fight, the Galaxy class has vastly more phaser arrays that have more power behind them to keep them firing longer. They have more photon torpedoes and can fire more of them at a time. Their shields, while less adaptable, have more power backing them up. On the Intrepid class's side, they have superior maneuverability that they could use to spread incoming fire across a wider range of the shield grids. This would give the grids more of a chance to repair and recharge. They have superior computing power, but this wouldn't necessarily give them a tactical advantage in open space. While their shields can protect a wider range of phenomenon, their actual ability to protect against any one specific phenomenon, such as weapon fire, is weaker than a Galaxy-class ship. So unless the captain of an Intrepid class used their brains, they would lose every time in a one-on-one fight against a Galaxy-class ship. A smart captain, however, would make use of the advanced features the Intrepid class offers and get the Galaxy class to enter a region of space that is advantageous to the Intrepid class ship. For instance, getting a Galaxy class ship to enter a region like the Badlands could mean victory for an Intrepid class ship without them having to fire a single shot. In terms of raw power, the Galaxy class is vastly superior, but a smart captain could find ways to use the unique features the Intrepid class offers to find a path to victory. And seeing how Intrepid class ships are first and foremost science vessels, odds are good you're going to have a smart captain.